Hey there, friends. I hope you are all doing well. I had a thought I wanted to share, a sentiment, if you will, that comes up from time to time in martial arts discussions, and it was really inspired, at least sharing this video was inspired by something I saw in a couple of other videos by someone else on YouTube, somebody much bigger than myself, a man named Shintaro Higashi, who teaches Judo. He also practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he teaches some principles relating to that. But he teaches Judo up in New York, and he's fantastic. He's a wonderful teacher. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's not much older than I am, but he is light years ahead of me. And I strongly encourage anybody who sees this, if they want to know more about Judo and really go deep into some things with a really clear explanation, to check out his channel. I'm going to include a link in the description, and maybe I can attach something at the end of the video here on a card. But at any rate, it was inspired by something I saw in a couple of his videos. It has to do with names and how we name exercises, or how we name drills, or in this case, how we name specific throws and Judo techniques. There is indeed a list of official Kodokan Judo throws. There's a master list of them, and they are defined a certain way. That is, your body's in a certain position, your leg does a certain thing, your arm does a certain thing, you're gripping a certain way, you move a certain way as you move your opponent or shift your opponent's weight a certain way, etc. And to be very textbook about things, there are certain criteria that you need to meet technically for a throw of a certain name to be what you are doing. So if you're doing osotogari, which is the first throw I demonstrated on this channel, then there are certain elements to that technique. However, there are there are circumstances in which an osotogari might actually look sort of like a haraigoshi. And that's actually a great example, because one of the videos that Shintaro Higashi shared is where he's demonstrating an osotogari that looks to many people like a haraigoshi. Is it one? Is it the other? Well, the point of it all is, to me, it doesn't matter much in practical terms. That doesn't mean there isn't a place to make sure that you are clear on what you're communicating about. If you say the name of a throw and you're trying to communicate meaning to somebody else, and then they have a different mental conception of the throw or a different idea of it, then there can be miscommunication. You definitely want to try to avoid that. But if you just kind of, for your own reference, call it something, and it's maybe not exactly that, but it's close, or it's a different version of that throw that's a little unorthodox, I see no problem with it. Ultimately, the most important thing from a practical standpoint is that you're able to execute a technique effectively. Whatever you might call it, if you're adhering to certain principles of body mechanics, certain principles of physics, certain principles of fairness, if it's competition, those sorts of things, then the rest is sort of secondary. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not something to get hung up on. So, if you're a beginner to Judo or any martial art, and you hear one teacher call something one thing, and you hear a different teacher call that same thing something else, which is right and which is wrong? Sometimes you can get an idea of it if you're trying to adhere to a textbook definition. Other times, they're both equally valid. You're going to find in Judo and in other martial arts that there are a lot of gray areas. In fact, there's more gray, there's more overlap than there is distinction in many cases. So, as somebody practices for years and years and years, they develop their own style, their own spin on things, and they're going to have a version of a certain technique that doesn't necessarily look like the way they were initially taught, or doesn't look like the way it is displayed or defined in a book. And that's okay. That's their understanding, or that's what they've come to embody in their participation in, or in their demonstration of their art. I'm not in any place to say that that's absolutely wrong or not wrong, or whatever. Now, if somebody says certain things about physics and they get the physics wrong, that's one thing, because that's something that can be objective, and there's only one physics, practically speaking. But yeah, if you hear two different names for the same technique, or if you hear the same name for techniques that look a little different, it doesn't mean that anybody that you're hearing that from is necessarily wrong. It boils down to what they're trying to convey and whether what they're doing is effective. And then beyond that, you get to decide whether you want to adhere to a specific definition or a specific name of a technique or not. So that's what I wanted to say. Again, check out Shintaro Higashi's YouTube channel. It's fantastic. He's got tons of videos on there. And again, he teaches me something every time I watch. So I'll include a link. Hope you found this informative or interesting. Hope you're doing well. I'll catch you all next time.